What's up, Anchor Peeps? Anchor Pete here, and it's been a long time since I've done one of these solo videos. Well, you know what? Today, I'm here to discuss the book Vengewar by Kevin J. Anderson. So, right off the bat, I have a confession to make. Vengewar is book 2 in the Wake the Dragon series, and I haven't read book 1. I get Kevin J. Anderson's newsletter, and he announced Vengewar coming out, and he was wondering if there are any people that wanted to get advanced copies, and of course I signed up. I'm a big fan of his work. I have been a fan of Kevin J. Anderson's work since I read some of his Star Wars books decades ago at this point. And I, of course, love his Dune books that he's written with Brian Herbert. Kevin J. Anderson is a very prolific author, and he's actually written over 140 novels. Recently, I just reviewed Duke of Caledon, which just came out a couple of months ago, and he co-wrote that with Brian Herbert. When I first started reading Vengewar, it automatically reminded me of his Dune books, where there's very short, brief chapters, and each one focuses on a specific character. There's many characters, but as you go through, there's just these little snippets where it just advances their story a little bit. It gives you a little deeper view into their character. And so I thought, okay, well, this is like Dune. I'm going to get this. And I was just totally in over my head. I just didn't get the world. I didn't understand it. So luckily, I researched some of the reviews from the previous book, and that came out in June of 2019. When I did that research, I learned about the world that this story takes place in, and I got to tell you that this book might be worth reading, and Spine of the World might be worth reading, just based on the world building itself. I love Kevin J. Anderson's Dune books, okay, and I also read his book Stake recently too, which I'll eventually do a review of on this channel. This is a whole new world. I'm always looking for images to use, so you're not just looking at me the whole time, right? And unfortunately, there's not a lot of imagery for this book. And the thing is, while I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, this would be so good to just look at. I almost want to just pay artists to draw some of the characters from this book. I think it's just ripe with potential artwork. And I only found like one image that was related to this book so far. So definitely, if you're an artist and you're getting into these books, like, get some of that artwork out. I'll gladly feature it on my Twitter account. I'll feature it in these videos. But I just think that it's just this super interesting, detailed world, and we need some imagery from it. I think that's a testament to Kevin J. Anderson's writing, though, because I'm sitting there the whole time, and this is a brand new world where the characters are created from scratch. It's made from the ground up. There's this dense mythology to it. And I'm just sitting there envisioning the whole thing. And I'm just picturing it as a movie, as a miniseries, as a graphic novel. I would just love to see artists' interpretations of it. In this story, the mythology is just laid out right for you, okay? And you have the god Kur, who's basically like the almighty god, and he creates this race called the Reth. Now, he made the Reth because after he created this world, he noticed a flaw in it. And he took all of his anger and his hate and his evil, and he put it into this creature that he made, a dragon known as Osis. He creates the Reth to destroy Osis, to take out this dragon. And the Reth themselves have the ability to create. You know what they create? They create humans. And you know what's awesome about this world? Is that humans don't have souls. They don't have an afterlife. They don't have their own religion. And so they are the servants of the Reth. To me, that's really exciting because pretty much every fantasy story I've read, humans seem to be the favored creation of the higher god, right? And then all the races are kind of equal to them, or that there's something that humans have which make them unique. And in this case, it was just really interesting that the humans were created by these lesser beings, right? By the Reth. And the Reth themselves are in conflict. There are snow Reth in the north, and then there are sand Reth. And they are at war with each other. Their war was so powerful that it removed the magic from the land that they were fighting on. The Reth then had to essentially go into hiding and heal using magic to heal over a prolonged period of time. And while they were doing that, human civilization started to flourish. Some human explorers traveled over to another land called Ishara, and that is where you have this separate kingdom. Now, this is all discussed in the first book. This is all mythology that's in the first book, according to what I've read. And it's referenced again in this second book, Vengewar. Now, Ishara is real interesting in itself because when the humans traveled over to Ishara, they saw that there was still magic there, and the humans there were able to create these characters known as like godlings. And so they worship the godlings. The godlings get their power from worship and sacrifice. So they were able to make their own religion over in Ishara. And see, I'm just sitting here the whole time just eating this stuff up. I love this. Then you have these people that are called Bravas, and they are basically like humans mixed with the Reth, right? And so they have special abilities as well. So all of this stuff is just part of this massive world building. So by the time we start Vengewar, one of the kings of the Commonwealth is killed. And the Isharans are blamed for his murder. And so the reason why the book is called Vengewar is because the people of the Commonwealth want to get revenge against the Isharans. And the Isharans also lost people in this, basically like this chaotic moment that led to a fake assassination attempt. So you have the Isharans wanting to go to the war with the Commonwealth, people of the Commonwealth wanting to go to war with the Isharans. Both of these forces butting heads. And this is all happening while the Frost Reths and the Sand Reths are coming back into power. One of the reasons why I love the Dune books by Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert is because they're this perfect marriage between like royal political intrigue and then science fiction fantasy, right? And you have the amazing world of Dune that Frank Herbert created with the Sandworms and the Guild. There are these nobles in that world just feuding with each other, fighting with each other. There's assassination attempts. There's always people trying to gain power. Well, Kevin J. Anderson, just writing by himself, is able to capture that same feel, but instead of it having the science fiction, outer space feeling, it does feel like the Song of Ice and Fire setting. And in a lot of ways, I wonder if when Kevin J. Anderson, when he wrote this book, was he trying to do his own take on Game of Thrones? Because obviously with Game of Thrones, we have that concept where you have this evil race of ice beings that live up in the north, and they are powered by magic, right? And in the Song of Ice and Fire books, they seem to represent a dark god. And then you also have their opposite, which they seem to represent a god of fire. Well, in this case, you have the Frost Reth, and then you have the Sand Reth, so it's not fire, but still, it's like essentially hot and cold. And, you have these two supernatural forces, and then there's the sort of warring kingdoms in between, and so you have these people that in this book are fighting with each other and they're trying to gain power, but meanwhile there's this bigger threat. And when I first started reading Vengewar, I was like, oh, this is very similar to Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, right? But then when I learned more about the mythology, I was like, oh, you know what, this is kind of more suited for me than Game of Thrones, because I just love the elaborate mythology. So what I would recommend is, if you have not read the first book, Spine of the Dragon, then you should go read that book. That's actually what I'm going to do now after reading Vengewar. I want to go read Spine of the Dragon and see how it all began. I am a huge fan of Kevin J. Anderson. I subscribe to his newsletter. I jump at the chance to read his books. And so I'm eventually going to post my review of his book, Stake, which is one of those stories where there's the main character that has an awareness of the supernatural, and he kills people who, in this case, he thinks are vampires, but you're not sure. It's ambiguous throughout the book. Well, are they real people and he's just nuts, or are they legitimately vampires? And of course, you can check out my Duke of Caledon review. When I finish reading Spine of the Dragon, then I will come back and review Spine of the Dragon on this channel too. So I definitely recommend checking out Spine of the Dragon and then Vengewar.